How you doing? My name is Keywan Bullard, and I'm here to bring you information on the Civil Rights Act of 1875, an act which changed the world as we view it forever. The act was the first action to work towards equality and outlaw discrimination. Although it wasn't officially passed until years later, it was a step towards growth for African Americans. With that being said, here goes my presentation. You feel me? This is just a little introduction slide. Topic introduction. The Civil Rights Act of 1875 stated that all individuals had the rights to occupy public spaces, including hotels, theaters, and restaurants, regardless of race, color, or past status or servitude. Its goal was to outlaw social discrimination against black people. In the 1883 civil rights cases, the Supreme Court declared the act unconstitutional, reason being that neither the 13th Amendment nor the 14th Amendment give the federal government the authority to forbid private discrimination, neither do they define the denial of public business as a badge of slavery. That would go against the 13th Amendment. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1957 when they decided to pass the rights of legislation. The reason being I picked this topic is actually a little story. I don't really feel that I picked this topic. I feel it picked me. I was just planning my workout for a previous assignment, and I added something about the Act of 1875 in it. And Professor Emmanuel Watkins, he assigned me to do my next assignment on it. So it kind of just followed me, and I kept the topic going. As I went through it, I started to get more interested in the topic because it was my own people. And
go ahead.
The positivity I think came out of this is that the law aimed to ensure that people, regardless of race, had equal access to public spaces and services such as hotels, restaurants, and transportation. It also aimed to address the widespread racial discrimination that persisted in the aftermath of the Civil War and Reconstruction era. While the Civil Rights Act of 1875 faced significant resistance and was eventually overturned by the Supreme Court in 1883, it was an important milestone in the ongoing struggle for civil rights and equality in the United States. It laid the groundwork for future civil rights legislation and helped to establish for African Americans that all people are entitled to equal treatment under the law. This law also is the first federal law to address civil rights and provided legal protection, which I think needed to be acknowledged. 5 major points from the research I chose. I'm gonna go over the points first. The first point I chose was what the Civil Rights Act was being passed for. The second one I chose was what the Civil Rights Act was all about and who it benefited. And the third one I chose was who helped pass the Civil Rights Act. The fourth one was why was the bill important and concerning to black representatives. And the fifth one was why was it ruled unconstitutional. The first one, why was the Civil Rights Act being passed? Was passed to ensure people weren't discriminated against in public areas because whites still wasn't respecting African Americans as equals. What the Civil Rights Act was all about and who it benefited, it was mainly intended to protect the civil rights of African Americans in the wake of the African American Civil War. Well, the American Civil War, but African Americans was a part of that. Who helped pass the act? After President Kennedy's assassination in November, Lyndon Johnson, along with Roy Wilkins and Clarence Mitchell, helped secure the bill passage in the year 1964. Why this bill was important and concerning to black representatives? I think this bill, the Civil Rights Act, it helped end the Jim Crow law and to secure African Americans equal access to public places and restaurants and facilities. It also enabled black women and other minorities to break down barriers in their workplace. Why was it ruled unconstitutional? In 1883, the Supreme Court ruled the civil rights cases unconstitutional because they ruled it unconstitutional because they didn't have control over a private person business. How this research affected me. Learning about the history of civil rights legislation helped me better understand the challenges and progress, and it made me in the ongoing struggle for racial equality more than ever. Research on the Civil Rights Act of 1875 provided valuable insights into the legal strategies used to fight discrimination and promote civil rights, but as they found ways to work around the legislation, they did, and that also added to my knowledge on how the system works. While researching about the act, I found numerous reasons why I should better appreciate the progress made in the struggle for racial equality. I believe my research affected me in a good way because I used it more as an informational eye opener.